Before we embark on this incredible journey, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our thrilling stories. Now, let's dive into the life of Isabella, a woman on the brink of discovering the true meaning of betrayal. It was exactly 9:30 p.m. when Gabriel walked into the kitchen where Isabella was preparing a cup of chamomile tea. The couple, married for 5 years, always included this moment of tranquility before bed in their routine. Isabella smiled at the sight of him, but her smile froze as she noticed the expression on her husband's face. "We need to talk," Gabriel said, taking a seat at the kitchen table, his fingers nervously drumming on the dark wooden surface. A chill ran down Isabella's spine. Those 3 words rarely preceded good news. She sat down across from him, carefully placing her cup on the table. "Cassidy is having surgery next week," Gabriel began, avoiding direct eye contact with Isabella's brown eyes.
"She doesn't have anyone to care for her during recovery." Isabella nodded slowly, waiting for the rest of the explanation. Cassidy was Gabriel's ex-wife, a name that occasionally came up in conversation, usually accompanied by his sighs of frustration. "I promised I would help her during this time," Gabriel continued, still avoiding her gaze. "It'll just be a few weeks, maybe 6 or 8 at most." Isabella blinked several times, processing the information. Help how, exactly? "I'm going to temporarily move into her house," Gabriel replied, the words rushing out. "The surgery is delicate. She'll need help with personal care, and she has no one else." The silence that followed was deafening. Isabella felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the kitchen. Her mind raced, trying to process the absurdity of the situation, but her face remained surprisingly calm. "I understand," she finally said, her voice steady. "When do you leave?" Gabriel looked up, clearly surprised by her reaction. He had expected tears, shouting, accusations, not this unsettling calm. "Saturday morning," he answered, studying his wife's face for any signs of an impending explosion. "Isabella, I know this seems strange, but it's just a favor for someone who needs help. It doesn't mean anything more than that." Isabella took a sip of her now lukewarm tea. "Do you want me to help pack your bags?" she asked, with a tranquility that even she didn't know where it came from. Gabriel swallowed hard, visibly uncomfortable with her lack of resistance. "That would be helpful," he murmured. "I need to take a quick shower." As the sound of the shower echoed down the hallway, Isabella remained seated, frozen. Only when she was sure Gabriel would be occupied for at least 15 minutes did she allow herself to react. Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth to stifle a sob. Gabriel's laptop was on the kitchen counter, still open. Something urged her to check it, an instinct perhaps, or simply a desperate need to make sense of this absurd situation. She quickly navigated to the email, not needing to break any passwords since Gabriel never bothered to log out. What she found made her blood run cold. An email exchange between Gabriel and Cassidy dating back 2 months. This wasn't a last-minute plan to help someone in need, it was a meticulously crafted conspiracy. "She's too polite to question us presenting this as a gesture of help for someone sick," one of Gabriel's emails read. "I can't wait for our second chance," Cassidy responded in another. Isabella closed the laptop exactly as she found it, her eyes now dry and her mind extraordinarily clear. When Gabriel returned to the kitchen, he found her methodically organizing a list of items he would need to take. "Are you okay with this?" Gabriel asked, suspicious. Isabella smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, we're adults." "Aren't we? Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for others." The next morning, while Gabriel was leaving for a work meeting, Isabella received a visit from her friend Maria, a nurse at Central Hospital, where, coincidentally, Cassidy would be having her surgery. "Did he tell you what kind of surgery she's having?" Maria asked as they sat on the porch with steaming cups of coffee. Isabella shook her head. "He just mentioned it's something delicate that will require personal care." Maria frowned. "Weird. From what I saw on the surgical schedule, Cassidy is having a cosmetic procedure, breast augmentation. It's an outpatient surgery, you know. She won't even be hospitalized for more than a day. Isabella felt as if she had been slapped. Are you sure? Absolutely. I checked this morning. It's an elective procedure, not emergency or delicate as he described. After Maria left, promising to keep things discreet, Isabella sat on the porch for a long time, digesting the information. When she finally stood up, there were no more tears or confusion, only determination. Gabriel's office was always locked, but Isabella knew where he kept the spare key, hidden behind a book on the shelf. She had never invaded his space before, respecting his privacy. Today, however, the rules had changed. The office was immaculately organized, with labeled folders in alphabetical order. Isabella began methodically examining each one, not knowing exactly what she was looking for until she found a locked drawer in his desk. She used a paper clip to force it open, a skill she had learned from her father, who worked with locks. The contents of the drawer made her heart race, a life insurance policy worth 500,000 reais in Cassidy's name, with Gabriel as the sole beneficiary. Next to it was a partial property transfer document, Cassidy's house, to Gabriel's name, supposedly in exchange for future care. With trembling hands, Isabella took photos of each document with her phone. Continuing her investigation, she accessed the bank statements from their joint accounts. She discovered regular transfers to an unknown account totaling over 30,000 reais in the past 2 years. The puzzle was starting to come together. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a scheme. When Gabriel returned, he found Isabella preparing dinner, humming softly as she chopped vegetables. "How was your Getty?" she asked with a placid smile. Gabriel visibly relaxed, still suspicious of his wife's apparent acceptance of the situation. "Productive," he replied. "I managed to get ahead on some projects, so I won't leave anything pending during my absence." "That's great," Isabella responded. "I started sorting your things. I thought I'd prepare some frozen meals for you to take as well. I imagine cooking isn't Cassidy's strong suit." Gabriel watched her with an expression that mixed relief and confusion. "That would be very kind of you." Isabella merely smiled, continuing to chop the vegetables with surgical precision. In the days that followed, Isabella transformed into the perfect wife. She meticulously packed Gabriel's bags, arranging his favorite clothes, toiletries, and even setting aside some books he was reading. She prepared several frozen meals, carefully labeled with heating instructions. Gabriel observed all of this with increasing discomfort, as if he were waiting for her to reveal that she knew everything and would explode in fury. But Isabella maintained her unperturbed facade. The night before he was set to leave, while they were having dinner, Isabella raised her wine glass in a toast. "To your journey of altruism," she said with an enigmatic smile. Gabriel choked slightly on his wine. "Isabella, I want you to know this doesn't change anything between us." "Of course not," she replied softly. "Some things are exactly as they always were. We just didn't know it." On Saturday morning, to Gabriel's surprise, Isabella insisted on driving him to Cassidy's house herself. "This way I can help you with your bags and the frozen meals," she explained. During the drive, Gabriel remained tense, glancing at Isabella occasionally as if trying to decipher her thoughts. She kept the conversation light, asking about the details of the surgery and offering advice on postoperative care. When they arrived, Cassidy answered the door wearing a silk pajama set and full makeup. Her eyes widened at the sight of Isabella. "I didn't expect to see you," she said, nervously fixing her hair. "I just came to help Gabriel with his bags," Isabella replied with a cordial smile. "And I brought some homemade meals for you." As Gabriel unloaded the car, Isabella carefully observed the interior of the house through the open door. There were no signs of preparation for someone recovering from surgery. No medications, no medical equipment, no adjustments in furniture. "When exactly is your surgery, Cassidy?"
Isabella asked casually. On Monday, Cassidy answered, clearly uncomfortable. And do you have everything prepared? Extra pillows, pain medication, appropriate clothes? Cassidy shot a desperate look at Gabriel, who had just come in with the last bag. I'm still organizing a few things, she murmured. Well, I hope everything goes well, Isabella said, beginning to say her goodbyes. Gabriel has my number if you need anything. As she returned to the car, Isabella glanced in the rearview mirror while Gabriel and Cassidy entered the house, quickly shutting the door behind them. Instead of driving straight home, she stopped at a cafe 2 blocks away. Sitting in the discreet corner, she opened her bag and pulled out an envelope she had prepared the night before. Inside were copies of all the incriminating documents, the insurance policy, the property transfer, and screenshots of the emails. She added an anonymous note. Cassidy, I believe you should be aware of these documents. It seems someone could benefit financially from your death or incapacitation. Please be careful and consider consulting a lawyer, a concerned person. After finishing her coffee, Isabella slowly drove back to Cassidy Street. There was no one in sight. She parked briefly, got out of the car, and slid the envelope into the mailbox. She knew from previous conversations with Gabriel that Cassidy had a habit of checking her mail every morning. With her heart racing but a serene smile on her lips, Isabella drove back home. The next morning, around 7 o'clock, Isabella's phone rang. It was Gabriel. We need to talk, he said, his voice tense and low. Something unexpected happened. Is everything okay with Cassidy? Isabella asked, injecting concern into her voice. She changed her mind about everything, Gabriel replied, carefully choosing his words. I think having an ex-husband around during her recovery made her uncomfortable. Can I come home? Isabella closed her eyes, savoring the moment briefly. Of course, dear. Do you want me to pick you up? Half an hour later, Isabella parked in front of Cassidy's house. The scene she found was chaotic. Gabriel's bags and belongings were strewn on the sidewalk, and he was sitting on one of them, looking defeated. What happened? Isabella asked, stepping out of the car. Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, visibly shaken. She went crazy, started accusing me of absurd things, saying she found documents. She threatened to call the police. Isabella helped him load the bags into the car, maintaining an expression of concern and confusion. During the drive home, Gabriel remained silent, staring out the window. When they arrived home, Gabriel froze at the sight of an unfamiliar woman sitting in the living room. Gabriel, this is Dr. Renata Campos. Isabella introduced calmly. She's my lawyer. The color drained from Gabriel's face. Lawyer? Why? Why don't you take a seat? Isabella suggested, gesturing toward the couch. We have a lot to discuss. Dr. Campos opened her briefcase and pulled out a series of documents. Mr. Gabriel, we are here to discuss the divorce proceedings initiated by Mrs. Isabella, as well as the allegations of financial fraud related to the misappropriation of funds from the couple's joint accounts. Gabriel looked at Isabella, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. You knew, he whispered, from the beginning. Not exactly from the beginning, Isabella responded, sitting down across from him, but in time to protect myself, and apparently also Cassidy. The lawyer continued detailing the evidence collected, the bank statements showing the misappropriations, the incriminating emails, the documents found in the office. The joint accounts have been temporarily frozen, explained Dr. Campos, and we filed a petition for you to cover the legal expenses of this process, given the circumstances. Gabriel sank into the couch, his arrogance completely deflated. This is ridiculous. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can, Isabella replied calmly, just as I'm sure you can explain it to your bosses and colleagues as well. Gabriel frowned, confused. What do you mean? Isabella picked up her tablet and showed him Cassidy's social media page, where she had posted a lengthy message detailing how she uncovered a disturbing scheme involving her ex-husband, including photos of the documents. The post had already received hundreds of shares. "It seems your reputation is at stake, Gabriel," Isabella remarked. "Your work contacts are on social media too, aren't they?" Gabriel's face shifted through various emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, defeat. "You have 30 days to find a new place to live," Isabella declared. "Dr. Campos has already prepared a temporary agreement regarding the use of the house during the divorce proceedings." When the lawyer left, Gabriel remained seated on the couch, looking at Isabella as if seeing her for the first time. "How did you know?" he finally asked. "The next time you plan to deceive someone," Isabella replied, standing up, "make sure to log out of your email and don't underestimate the person who's been sleeping next to you for 5 years." The following weeks were a whirlwind for Isabella. Gabriel moved into a small rented apartment as the divorce process unfolded. News of his scheme spread quickly, resulting in his temporary removal from work to address personal matters, a euphemism for the fact that no one wanted to work with him after the revelations. On a rainy afternoon, Isabella's mother came to visit her. Teresa was 62, with a keen gaze and a contagious laugh that masked the inner strength forged by decades of challenges. "You know," Teresa began as they shared a cup of tea on the porch, sheltered from the rain, "I've never told you about my first marriage." Isabella raised her eyebrows, surprised. "I always thought Dad was your only husband." Teresa smiled, a smile that carried both nostalgia and resolution. "I married very young, at 18, to a man named Ricardo. He was 10 years older, charming, persuasive. Our marriage lasted only 2 years." "What happened?" "I found out he had another family in another city, a wife, 2 kids. I was the other without even knowing it." Isabella took her mother's hand, squeezing it gently. "Why didn't you ever tell me this?" "Because for a long time it was too painful. And then, when I met your father, it seemed irrelevant." Teresa paused, looking at the rain softly falling. "But there's another reason I'm telling you now: the way I handled the situation." "How was that?" "When I found out, I did something similar to what you did. I didn't confront Ricardo immediately. Instead, I gathered evidence, documented everything, and then I sent it all to his other wife." Teresa smiled. "A few weeks later, he came crawling back, begging for forgiveness. His other family had kicked him out." "And did you take him back?" Isabella asked, unable to imagine her strong, independent mother in such a situation. Teresa laughed, a crystalline sound that mingled with the patter of rain. "Of course not. When he knocked on the door, I had already changed the locks and started the divorce. The last time I saw him was in court, looking like a sad puppy." The two women fell silent for a moment, watching the rain gradually taper off. "It's funny," Isabella finally said. "I was always taught to be direct, to confront problems immediately. But in this situation, some betrayals run so deep they require more than words," Teresa finished. "Sometimes the best response is to ensure that the truth comes to light on its own. It's not revenge, it's justice." That night, while Teresa was sleeping in the guest room, Isabella received an unexpected email. It was from Cassidy. "I wanted to personally thank the person who alerted me about the documents. I don't know who it was, but I have my suspicions. Those papers saved me from something that could have been much worse than a broken heart. I'm moving to Florianopolis next week for a fresh start. I sincerely wish you find the peace and happiness you deserve. With gratitude, Cassidy." Isabella smiled at the computer screen. A cycle had come to a close. 6 months had passed since Gabriel left Isabella's life. Autumn had arrived, painting the neighborhood trees in shades of gold and red. Isabella watched nature transform from her newly renovated porch, feeling that the change of seasons mirrored her own journey. The house, once decorated with items reflecting primarily Gabriel's taste, was now transformed. Walls had been painted in colors Isabella had always preferred. Furniture was rearranged, and previously neglected spaces had been revitalized. Her office was now her studio, where she had resumed painting, a passion she had set aside during the marriage because he deemed it a hobby with no future. Colorful canvases adorned the walls, some already sold to local galleries. That special night, Isabella was preparing to host friends for dinner. It wasn't a formal occasion, just beloved people gathered to celebrate life and new possibilities. Maria was the first to arrive, bringing a bottle of wine and hugging Isabella tightly. "This house is unrecognizable," she remarked, looking around. "Just like you." Isabella smiled. We both needed a refresh. Gradually, the other guests arrived: her mother Teresa, her co-worker Pedro and his wife Ana, her cousin Julia, who had come from Sao Paulo specifically for the occasion. The house filled with voices and laughter. During dinner, Teresa proposed a toast. "To my daughter," she said, raising her glass, "who taught me that it's never too late to start over, and that elegance lies not just in how we handle triumphs, but especially in how we face betrayals." As her friends animatedly chatted, Isabella observed the scene with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, a notification from a professional social network. Out of curiosity, she checked it. It was an update about Gabriel. After months of unemployment and social ostracism, he had accepted a position far below his qualifications at a small company in the countryside. His professional biography, once filled with achievements and recommendations, was now reduced to a few lines. Isabella put her phone back in her pocket without feeling any special satisfaction from the news. What had happened to Gabriel wasn't a revenge orchestrated by her, it was merely the natural consequences of his own choices. Returning to the dining room, Isabella joined the lively conversation about a contemporary art exhibition happening next month. "You should submit some of your paintings," suggested Julia. "Your work is incredible." "Maybe I will," Isabella replied, smiling. "I'm learning not to underestimate my possibilities." Later, when the last guests were saying their goodbyes, Teresa embraced her daughter tightly at the door. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, "not because of what happened with Gabriel, but because of how you've blossomed afterward." When she finally closed the door, Isabella slowly walked through each room of the house, turning off lights, collecting empty glasses, enjoying the comfortable silence that now belonged only to her. In the studio, she paused in front of her latest canvas, an unfinished painting of a bird taking flight against a stormy sky, with rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds. The provisional title, written in pencil on the canvas's edge, was "After the Storm." Isabella picked up her brush, dipped it in sky blue paint, and continued working, adding more light to the horizon of the painting. If you enjoyed this story of overcoming and starting anew, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement is what motivates us to keep bringing you stories that move and inspire.